We're live. Okay, guys. Hello, hello. Welcome to our show. Just kidding. I'm here with Rachel and Ash. We're here to discuss their successes, their experiences in shifting out of dealing with 5 to 6 meltdowns a day with their highly sensitive children and moving into no longer feeling overwhelmed on a daily basis. And so I want to just introduce you, let the audience know. I know one thing that we're going to do here in today's conversation, specifically given the topic, is really protect your kids' privacy. So we won't be identifying gender. We'll say kiddo 1, kiddo 2, or something like that, so that we have the opportunity to discuss how you experience shifting, making these shifts, but in a way that helps your kids know they can have the privacy on the internet. So where are you from? Share a little bit about, introduce yourself. One of the biggest results that you got after we were working together.
Well, I'm Rachel.
I'm Ash.
I'd say we're from the South, but we've lived all over, and we're currently living in Ohio.
That's right.
Let's see. We basically kind of watched online your videos and stuff for a little while before we took the plunge. Mm-hmm. But it was because we had a kiddo who is a tween who was really just miserable, and the things we had tried weren't working. And it sounded like that kiddo fit what you were saying were the traits that you helped with. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm ever the skeptic, especially about things that you find online. Mm-hmm. I have a research PhD, yeah. And I've seen so much stuff that sounds really cool on the surface, and it turns out just to be a bunch of anecdotal bunk. And as we were looking at the program, I started looking into the actual theoretical underpinnings of it, and everything was really solid. Mm-hmm. And that was something that was really important to me, was knowing that there was backing for everything that we were going to commit to. And mm-hmm. that really, really made me more confident right up front, mm-hmm. going into the program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I want to ask you, when you first, where were you before you found us? When we discussed the misery that you guys were experiencing, walk the audience through what that looked like on a daily, weekly basis.
We were discussing where to hide the knives in the house, mm-hmm. and how quickly we could get a safe in here to put them in, mm-hmm. so that they would not be accessible at all.
Mm-hmm.
We knew something was wrong probably years ago, and had tried to find mental health mm-hmm. help. And then last year we did a whole year of therapy for one kiddo. And kiddo wouldn't really comply with the therapist. Mm-hmm. They played games and did some bonding. But this kiddo, even with a year of bonding, wasn't ready to open up, mm-hmm. and wouldn't do the homework given. Mm-hmm. And so I even said to the therapist, kiddo won't do the homework. I'll do some homework. Give me some homework.
Yeah.
I can see what you're trying to do, and it isn't working. Mm-hmm. And tell me, and I'll do it. Mm-hmm. I think the therapist we had maybe wasn't into family systems as much, and was more child focused, and just sort of said, I'll think about it, which may mean I don't know what to tell you to do.
Right.
Or it may mean I don't want to deal with adults. I don't know, yeah. And I didn't ask. I just was kind of like, okay. So that was a struggle, to be doing that every week. And it actually, the therapy homework increased meltdowns, because mm-hmm. then we now had another thing to have a power struggle over.
Here's another
mm-hmm.
worksheet.
And I can't see it helping. And then every time I could see that therapist was about to get a breakthrough with a big feeling, mm-hmm. kiddo would shut down, just absolutely shut down, like to the point of, I don't want to go to therapy next week. Mm-hmm. And I would mm-hmm. be saying to the therapist, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. And we take week off? Do I say, nope, we still got to go? So it just wasn't clicking. And we've both had therapy before, so we kind of know how it works, and that usually there's some successes early on even.
Right. That's what effective therapy is meant to be. And so when we think about the challenges that you guys were having, what emotions were running through your brain in terms of, and in your heart, when you saw your child struggling with this approach?
I think it was really defeating. Like, if we're doing everything we know to do and it's not working, so now what?
It made it hard for me to come home from work. I mean, I would find reasons to stay at the university late because I knew when I came home, I would have not one but two highly sensitive people that I would have to deal with the moment I walked in the door.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with college kids all day, having to come home to that is really kind of hard.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that for you specifically, because you are highly sensitive as well, Ash. So that overwhelm and just that experience of wanting to stay at work. I mean, we all go to work to support our family. And so I can imagine that was really heavy on your heart.
Yeah, I grew up with a dad who took care of the family by working. And I lived with him, but I'd see him on the weekends.
Yeah.
And when we talked about having kids, we talked about how that would not be how we raised our kids.
Oh.
That they would get to see me on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And having that feeling of, do I have to deal with this today?
Yeah.
What am I going to walk into? It wasn't, the challenge of parenting. Who did somebody break my kiddos' hearts? It was, what fire am I going to have to put out? And fire extinguishers have to be recharged, and there was no recharging going on.
Yeah. Okay. So drawing from an empty well.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to me, but I want to make sure that we hear from both of you. Why was it imperative that you addressed it then and there, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago or whatever, with the holidays, et cetera, in our timeline? Why was it evident for your family that now was the time?
I think we saw it wasn't getting better. We could buy into a systems approach where we were part of the solution. Our kiddo was even saying, I need you to help me fix this. I don't want strangers to help me fix this. I want you to help me fix this. And I know, like, Ash as a teacher was looking forward and thinking, oh my goodness, these behaviors, they don't get better with age. They get riskier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things were ratcheting up as well. We had a situation where there was a threat of self-harm right before we moved. Then right after we unpacked everything here, there was another threat of self-harm. Just one right after the other, pretty much. And we've had to deal with a lot of transitions, and we didn't know if we'd all make it if there was one more transition we had to make, because teaching in a pandemic, it's, you don't know from year to year how stable your job's going to be.
Right.
And we had to do something to make sure we were equipped to handle if we had to move again. That would be yet another traumatic experience. And with these threats of self-harm turn into something real. So we had to do something.
What I want to acknowledge for both of you, but especially in what you're saying here, Ash, is the decision to notice that the fact that you didn't know how the future was going to play out actually motivated you to make a decision now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because when we think about parents who are struggling with making this decision to take drastic action to shift their family's dynamic. Some people use the fact that they don't know how the future is going to play out as a reason to not take action, as a reason to keep thinking about taking action, or to spend more time, for lack of a better word, in the suck, right? Wondering if it'll either turn out better, or just wondering for things to turn out better in their own environment, right? And so what you guys know, when we think about the qualities of what makes a parent successful in what we do, it is noticing that the only time you make a decision is now. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't make a decision in the future. When the future comes, that date that you decided to make that decision, at that point, it's now. And so for you guys, why, I guess what I want to do is kind of unlock that a little bit more for families who are wondering, or who are stuck in wondering how the future will play out. Again, we're in a pandemic right now, and we've had so many families walk themselves through shifting this dynamic. When somebody might say, it's the pandemic is part of the reasons why we're struggling so much. But what you guys did was make the pandemic the reason why you should be succeeding. So can you share a little bit more about how that resonates with you, and what was running through your mind, and obviously the urgency regarding your child's needs, and with that being said, you were addressing it with therapy. You had a professional involved, and so you could have waited. So Rachel, I'm going to ask you, since Ash spoke a little bit about that, but
I think we've had lots of family transitions and medical crises and stuff. And so I know that just finding mental health experts for children is very challenging, period. Mm-hmm. Like no change about that. And then getting it lined up with your insurance and all those things. So I've actually been working for years on trying to connect my kids with the right people. Mm-hmm. So I think I just couldn't take it anymore. Why would we want to be miserable for 1 second longer in hopes that it's going to get better on its own? Mm-hmm. And I also think, that when I watched the video before the breakthrough call, that something started to resonate with me, that they were signs at a much younger age. Because I don't have a young child who's having the kinds of meltdowns that maybe I thought the program was going to address to begin with. So I watched the video a couple of times, just to make sure I was really in the right place.
Hey guys, can we tell Rachel's also highly sensitive?
Yeah. So, but it just, how can you let your kid be miserable? How can you let your whole family be miserable? Mm-hmm. And so I think I just am a persistent person too, and I'm going to keep looking for the answer. And I know not every problem can be solved. Not every problem in the whole world can be solved, but I hadn't exhausted all my resources yet. So I was going to keep going until I did.
Mm-hmm. 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 I love that. Just knowing that how you identify, right, as a problem solver. Right. Yeah. And so how did you find us?
We found you on Facebook, and I was I sort of understood kind of the model, because I've done some delved in the kind of funnel and Facebook. I've run my own Facebook ads and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I sort of knew what I was getting into and what to expect. Mm-hmm. So it was familiar, idea to watch a course and then have a breakthrough call. Mm-hmm. And I kind of watched in the Ninja group for a while, I think, too, so it was a few months before I took the plunge, and I wish I had just gone ahead and done it, because I think 3 or 4 months ahead, at least, of where I am now. Where I am now is great compared to where it was 3 or 4 months ago. So,
So, knowing that and taking your time to make the decision, what what for you was one of the first things that you noticed that we asked you guys to do that felt weird or crazy, or kind of, Ash, tapping into your typically skeptical nature, felt out of the ordinary?
Validation, the way the system works with validation. You know, before I moved up to the college level, I spent 14 years teaching middle school. And I've been through so many programs on dealing with difficult children, helping kids succeed in the classroom. You name it, I've sat through it. And no one had ever said to me, look at the kid, use a calm voice and say, you're really frustrated right now. And I'm like, I've sat through how many hundreds of hours of professional development, and no one's ever said this. What? And then I tried it, and it stopped our kiddo right in their tracks.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy smokes, that worked. And, looking back, I wonder how my career would have been different if someone had said that to me at the front end with some of the difficulties I've had. But yeah, it's that whole validate and let them know that you're understanding exactly what they're going through in a calm robot tone. It sounded crazy, but it worked.
So knowing that, right, when we think about typical strategies, and some of the parenting experts out there are and Rachel, in your research, I can imagine the concept of validation wasn't brand new. And so one of the things that we do, that's what I should say is that's one piece of the puzzle, right? So when we think about parents who are going to come here and they're going to hear, yeah, I've read that before, right? Or I've heard that before, right? And so for you, Rachel, in knowing that, because I can imagine, I might even have remembered a conversation where you're like, okay, but now what, right? We've tried some of these things. I did the best I could teaching myself. I call it, the DIY method, parenting a highly sensitive child. And then there's pieces that are not included, right, in validation. And that's just one part of the puzzle. So for you, what did you feel skeptical about? And it might have just been what we already talked about in terms of not jumping in sooner, but I don't want to get ahead of myself.
I think for the most part, once after the breakthrough call and we were in, I just bought in, for the most part. Now, maybe for me, what was hard. I am like a type A, serious, let's get this list done kind of person. And even before the breakthrough call, after watching some more of the videos in the Ninja Facebook group, I started trying to play more because I realized that my kid had stopped playing a couple of years ago, pretty much. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why. And I realized that I wasn't playing. And I mean, I come from a generation where parents didn't necessarily get down on the floor and play with you. So that's not, totally crazy, but it's weird for the kid to not be playing. So I started that, and that's been a challenge to stay playful the whole time when I can see the outcome that I want, and why can't I just go get it, instead of why do I have to create a whole scenario around it, but we've had lots of fun creating our own imaginary world with stuffed animals. So,
So what did you notice that happened right away in terms of the successes that you guys saw diving in?
I think one of the first things I remember with kiddo after some validation, the first time I really felt like validation worked was when the feedback I got was, wow, you're a good listener, Mom. I had felt like for the past year, I was a terrible mom and it wasn't ever connecting and we couldn't communicate. And so I gave validation and I got some back,
Wow.
We might both, and I think the most meaningful thing, it wasn't right away, but within the first probably like 3 weeks, um, with some mindset work, I finally got that I had to trust myself and trust my kid. That's what kiddo needed most, was for me to trust that I was the good parent that I had thought I was before all this. We got in the thick of it. And kiddo was the good kid I always thought kiddo was, you know? So I think that was, but I really tried to go at it with I am in. Like I don't just have to do things. That's why it took me so long to take the plunge, right?
Yeah.
But so once I was in, I really wanted to do it.
Yeah. 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 So what's one thing that you noticed in terms of walking along this journey with other families and noticing that their kids maybe have different behaviors and different needs, the parents, different people, different perspectives? What was that like for you?
Sometimes I felt a little isolated because I felt like most of the vocal people had really small kids who were having tantrum like meltdowns, and that's not necessarily what I was experiencing. I was experiencing a tween who, instead of moody, almost teenage angst, was having all day misery with ruminations, could not get off the ruminations. The ruminations created the misery that created the big feelings, and it just cycled around.
Yeah.
And all, like I said before, we had done some therapy after like a family crisis, a medical crisis. And so I knew like all these things to do,
Yeah.
And I could tell kiddo all these things to do and try, and it didn't work when I did it either. So I can't get too mad at the therapist when I'm doing the same kinds of, things. But view was so that there might be some other people watching your videos and they're thinking, well, I don't have little kids who are having tantrums all day or being destructive with property. I have a kid who's miserable, who sounds like they might be highly sensitive, but I don't know. And so I think, but I have connected with other people who maybe weren't as vocal, because it's hard to be vocal about that your kid is miserable all day long, with these terrible thoughts that just plague them. So that's part of the reason I wanted to do the interview. I did feel a little isolated, but now that I'm an alum, I feel like a lot more people who experienced more the same kinds of things that we have.
Right. So let's bring everybody up to speed in terms of where you are now and how frequently the misery was happening at that point. And then now, what is it like at this point for your family?
I feel like there were days and weeks where it felt like misery was pretty much all day long.
Yeah.
And now, I hear transitions are still hard, like over the holidays, out of school and back in. But I hear today was a good day. Not like, woo, today was a good day, but like today was a good day.
Yeah.
And that is, for my kid, that's woo.
Right. Exactly.
So it's just totally different. And I don't feel like kiddo is stuck in rumination all the time, because if you're ruminating all the time, it spills out into the rest of your world.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of us have a much bigger toolbox in how to handle transitions and when things get bigger and just the day to day. Because, we're all a little miserable sometimes, and the cool thing is that even if we weren't HSPs, sorry, we're not children, then the tools would still work for us too, in day-to-day management of feelings. So.
I'd say one of the biggest things from where we were to where we are now, the way our youngest HSC would manifest their feelings made, family time very difficult, because if that kiddo lost a game, even something as random as a card game that's all, just entropy based, then they totally lose it, and cards would go everywhere. And now, if we sit down and play something and they don't win, it's, hey, let's do that again. Or, hey, I'm gonna try. You go on. I'm gonna try and practice this and see if I can get better. And we sat there the other night playing a game on the Switch, just going back and forth in streaks of wins on this game called Boomerang Fu. And it was just like, we're having fun and no one's thinking about who's winning or losing. We're just spending time together.
You're just all ganging up on me. You are so bad at this, Mom. No, he's right. But he's right. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, family game time is now actually fun.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, just thinking about where you were, Ash, you mentioned earlier in our conversation not wanting to come home because you didn't know what it was going to be like, right? And so what's it like now? I mean, I know the semester started back up again for you, or?
No, we're because of the pandemic, we're actually in spring break right now. So
okay.
I start back. My first class is next Tuesday.
Okay.
But we've gone from a situation where, because I'm in startup and because I'm still having to get everything planned, because I'm still new here and trying to get everything in the system, it's taking me a little longer than I'd like. But instead of, you never want to play with me. Why do I even ask to play with you? You're always busy. You're always, okay, we can do this tomorrow after you've got your syllabus done.
That's it.
And
that's it. That's what we're talking about. The difference between misery and flexibility, right?
Yes.
Right.
And when we think about, you mentioned something really important, Rachel. Every once in a while we feel miserable, right? But your child, we talk a lot about this, and when we consider the mindset work we do, your child doesn't have to live there all day. Like, that is a misperception that being highly sensitive means you are feeling your feelings deeply all day long, and they're negative. That's not a personality trait.
Right.
And so I just love hearing that is now your normal, that is what your family is experiencing, because that's how life is supposed to be. When we think about evolution and the families who are highly sensitive and 20% of the population, nobody was put on the earth to be 20% of the population to be miserable all day long. That doesn't make any sense. Highly sensitive people have a much different purpose in life than to show us a demonstration of misery. Like, what the heck, right?
Right.
So, knowing that, how has it impacted your relationship between the two of you, just in terms of being able to communicate and has it shifted your ability to be on the same page or what have you?
You go first.
I would say absolutely. We grew up in two very different family dynamics. Rachel spent a lot of time with her parents and had a very integrated life with them. I was really kind of separate and spent a lot of time in my room doing my homework by myself. And we would occasionally have family fun a weekend a month. And so Rachel had a different experience with discipline and displays of emotion than I did. So just the process of going through this system, we had to discuss and get on the same page so that we were implementing everything the same way. At the same time, the journey of self-discovery and finding out that we were also highly sensitive people has changed the way that we interact with each other, because we can recognize when one or the other is starting to hit a place of overwhelm.
Yeah.
And instead of popping off and both of us leaving mad and coming back and having another conversation that almost gets that bad again, we can say, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm having trouble processing. I need to stop and take a few minutes to let everything get through. And then we can come back to it and pick up where we left off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really transformative.
Wow.
I agree. I think everybody in the house communicates better now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we always had a lot of words, but they weren't always received. The speaker wasn't always able to stop speaking and receive, and the receiver didn't always understand the language of the speaker. And so I think everybody is more on the same page. And of course, this isn't over at the end of 8 or 10 weeks. It's going to be a journey for definitely the next year and beyond. Mm-hmm. So we're still working to get on the same page more and more, but it's so much improved.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what parenting is all about, right? Like you never turn it off. So it's not to say, and your children are developing and learning skills, and they're going to have challenges and wins. But what we want to experience for the whole family is that the majority of the time that you're interacting with each other, you feel like that is coming from a place of strength, that is coming from a place of joy and happiness and safety.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can teach your kids values and they soak it up, right? You can, versus just feeling like it's, you're in survival mode day in and day out.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having a conversation with me and helping families see what's possible for them. If there was more that you wanted to share, I want to, just give you the opportunity to do that. Are there things that we didn't discuss today that you think would be valuable for families to understand about what's possible for them if they focus fully on being able to turn their family dynamic around?
I think one of the biggest things for me was to encounter mindset work in a way that also took into account like my cultural and religious values. And I could see for other people in the group who may have had different cultural or religious values than I did, the mindset work also worked for them. So it wasn't, I have done some mindset work before the group, but it never really felt like it fit because it didn't take into account that I had a religion and a way of thinking about the world that was based on that. And so I really think that was one of the best things because the mindset work is huge to being able to just change your family's legacy. Once you've been in these cycles over and over and over again, it wears down positive mindsets that you had. And so they have to be re-recorded.
Right.
So I think that was the biggest thing for me is I could authentically do mindset work here and still be me. Okay. Not like I didn't have to practice yoga. If I did practice yoga, I could practice yoga, and it expanded my ideas of mindset too, in that it could be sewing, or it could be a hobby, doing a hobby mindfully or whatever. So they don't want mindset to be a bad word for anybody.
Right. Want to add to that, Ash, because I have a follow-up question, but I want to give you an opportunity.
Sure. I think to anyone who is looking for some way to work with their highly sensitive kiddos, I think for me, the thing that really helped the most was it's all bite size and it's easy to take with you. This is something that will absolutely upend probably the way that your house is running, but in a very positive way, because it's simple things, little Lego blocks of ideas that you can take and put together, follow the instructions, see how it works, and then you can take the part of it that you need to a different situation and be able to pick up in the middle if you don't have to start back at the beginning with that kiddo. And it's once you get into implementing it, it makes sense. It's so straightforward. You scratch your head thinking, how did I not get this earlier?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not alone in that observation, right? When we think about making changes that are drastic and flip your family's dynamic upside its head, and using evidence-based practices like identifying the fact that your children are highly sensitive, following a structured routine, etc. The focus is not in the what's the word that I want to say? The categories of things that you need to do. It's in the specificity, right? Change happens in the specific, as we always talk about in boot camp. So the big idea makes perfect sense. But when you think about, okay, yeah, but how? That's where accountability and support comes in, right? And that's the challenge that many people have, which we know can totally, as you already discussed, Rachel, create a situation like you're feeling like a crappy parent, but just doing all the things that, you're supposed to be doing. And so if it's not in the right order and using the right recipe, then, your cake tastes nasty and you get salmonella if you put eggs on top of it, on top of the frosting, right? Right. Believe me, I've forgotten baking soda and brownies before. That is gross. I don't even know if baking soda or salt. I can't remember. Either way, I messed it up. And it's inedible. And that was basically, some of the things that I heard you say through our work together, or, even today in today's conversation, that the order, the specificity is as you mentioned, bite-sized pieces, building something from Lego from ground up, is where it's at, man. So, anything else before we wrap up? I'm just so grateful for your conversation and for your bravery in discussing the challenges that your kiddos have had, and where you are now. And so I appreciate you greatly. Is there more that you wanted to add before we wrap up?
I don't think. I just, if you're kind of feeling if what we're saying resonates with you, and you're wondering if you're the fit, and you're like me, you're feeling it out, then I would say do the breakthrough call, because, what will it hurt? I didn't talk to somebody and find out if you fit, if it works.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's my cue to put the thing on there. I forgot. Thanks, thanks, Rachel. You're like, I know how to do marketing. That's so funny. What else about for you, Ash? Anything else?
I think the most important thing for people who are out there wondering what they should do is you don't have to go through it alone. This is not you with a coach going through a program isolated. You're going through it with a flight of people who are in the exact same situation you are. And you are hearing their successes along the way, and you're hearing their frustrations, and you're realizing that, we're not that different from everyone else. And other people are having these challenges, and other people are having wonderful successes. So those weeks when things may not be going the way that you hope they were, and your kiddo just can't seem to calm down, even with validation, even with redirection, someone else has a massive breakthrough, and you're like, yeah, we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the strength is in everyone supporting everyone, and the community's been wonderful.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. We work hard to keep that up for you guys and to foster that. So that's lovely to hear. Okay. Well, again, as I mentioned, I just can't thank you enough, because the circumstances that your family came to us in were very, very hard and sad and difficult to hear. And the fact that you're here bravely live on video sharing it for other people is just commendable. But also, I appreciate you significantly. So thank you for that. And I'm really looking forward to the fact that you'll be inspiring other families to make different changes in their lives. So it's been a pleasure, and continue to look forward to watching your family soar.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Bye now. Oh, I guess I should say I'm just sorry, so zoned into like your family's love story, that I should say if families are wondering how they can get that support, go ahead to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk. Myself or my team will get on the call with you, and we'll help you see whether or not we can support you getting out of this intense emotion and the spiral of the meltdowns, etc. And if we're the right fit, we'll tell you how that works. And if not, then we'll steer you in the direction that would be more appropriate. So put the link in the video below.